little while ago, I was doodling little like fairy outfits and stuff because I wanted to add a little bit more color to my outfits and um like incorporate petals and stuff because I do a lot of leaf outfits. And I wanted to put some petals in there and just make them look like really cute. And I made some dresses, and one of the dresses looked like it gave me hardcore Rapunzel vibes. And I'll put it on the screen. I was just doodling and I was coming up with this and I had to put Rapunzel in that dress. So that's what this is I thought it would be fun to draw like a fairy Rapunzel basically. And I just love her purple dress, and so I put some purple leaves and I put a little bit of pink in there cuz I've seen some uh I think they were concept arts of Rapunzel while they were making the film in a pink dress. I've seen pink and green, and I loved them both. So I put some pink in there, and I'm really happy with the way that it looked. But right now, we're looking at the sketch. So I originally drew out this Rapunzel sketch a little while ago, and I had it recording at a lower quality. So this front bit is a little bit of a lower quality recording. But as it goes on, I put it onto a new canvas and I upped the quality because I thought that it would be fun to make a video out of. So a little bit later, you'll see that the quality goes up just a little bit. And then I also have some screen captures that you can see more, not like real time, but a little bit more zoomed in and detailed stuff of what I do. Oh, see, there was the jump. Um, and I had also redone the outlines in a different brush because I've fallen in love with the shell brush. I wanted to use the shell brush for the line art of this Rapunzel drawing. So here you can see after I cleaned up the flat colors, I started doing the regular screen recording, and I'm just doing a little bit of detailing on her face. And I've just been loving texture. So I tried to include a little bit of texture in the art itself, in the coloring itself, um, with the shell brush again because I love that brush. It's just one of the default brushes that come with Procreate. I think it's in the calligraphy folder. It's just called the shell brush. But I love the line weights and the texture of it. So I'm going in and I have a multiply layer that I'm applying a bit of shadow on, and I lighten it up and I like to erase just a little bit of um, the shadows with my like a large soft eraser to kind of make it look a little bit more blended and a little bit less harsh, but not completely blended. So you can still see that there's an edge, but there's a gradient in the shadow, if that makes sense. And then with this, I also thought it would be really cool if like the petals of her dress were not completely opaque. They were just a little bit transparent. And so you can see like her braid and stuff in the background. And then in like the puffy sleeves, you can see her hair kind of through it. And I thought that would just kind of give the whole drawing a little bit of extra, I don't know, just make it more interesting to have that bit of transparency running through it. I've been really practicing and trial and error and everything with my art, trying to figure out how rendered I want to make pieces that are very line art heavy. And I know it's not completely line art heavy here, but like more line arty than my normal stuff that I make. Trying to figure out how much rendering to work with that has been an interesting challenge or experiment. And I feel like the amount of rendering that I did for this feels really close to how, like, I'm very happy with it. It feels very close to how I want it to look. So with the rendering that I did here, I did like two different sets of of multiply layers for shadows, and I did that eraser trick that I was talking about before, where I put down the shadow and then I used a soft eraser and I just kind of lightly erased over it, while not completely erasing it. So you could still see all of the lines where I put my shadows, but it is a little bit lighter and has a little bit more of that gradient. And I think I just said exactly what I said before, but anyway, uh, doing the braid was really fun. Just doing all those little floopy lines, those little curved lines. It's just a lot of fun to color in hair because there's just so much movement and a lot of curves that are just really fun to draw in hair. Here's that second layer of shadow. And then I usually go through and I lighten shadow because I don't want it to be too dramatic. And then when I'm done with the shadows, I like to go back over things with a little bit of lighting just to kind of make things look just a little shiny, because shininess is just so fun, especially in hair. I didn't want to make it too dramatic, but I wanted it to be apparent that her hair was shiny. So I had 2 layers of um, highlights, and I just was very minimal with where I put the highlights, with just the little dots that are obviously lighter than her hair, so that it looked really highlighty. And then just on like the curves, the high end of the curves is usually where I would put those highlights. I remember when Tangled first came out, I can't remember how old I was. I was still pretty young. But when it first came out, I went and watched it in the theaters like 3 or 4 times. I loved that movie. It was like my favorite movie, and it's still up there in my favorites a little bit now because of nostalgia, but um it just it's just a warm, fun movie and I really like it. So I had a little bit of trouble with the eyes. I couldn't make them look quite the way that I wanted them to. So you'll see I trial and error quite a bit with what I do with them, and I ended up just kind of going for a little bit more of a simpler look with larger pupils. Um, Sometimes I'll go pupilless, sometimes I'll go and put like little pupils in there. I feel like I haven't quite found exactly what I like to do with this line art look that I've been kind of experimenting with. And I really like the way that this turned out in the end. It's not there yet, but in the end. So I might do it a little bit more. I'm not normally a large pupil drawer. I normally keep them really small, or I don't even draw them in. I always like with eyes to put a little bit of warmth in the pupil if I do draw a pupil. I just feel like it kind of creates a bit of a reflection, and I just like the way that it looks. I played around with the highlights a little bit, tried to figure out how I wanted them to look. I ended up doing my tried and true, like, square highlights. I think in reference images that I've seen with this kind of a highlight, I think it's a window that they're looking through that creates that square. So it doesn't always work, like if you go into why that highlight looks like that. So I should probably adjust with what kind of art I'm making and like what's in them. Like, she's probably not looking through a window, but I think it looks good. So we're gonna ignore the fact that the reflection is a window. I just like the square highlights. I just think it adds a little bit to round eyes and round irises, and I just like the way that they look. But I'm still experimenting with different highlights to see what kinds I like, and it's just not something that I can nail every time the first time, which sounds silly because it's just like a little bright spot on the eye that, like, it seems like everyone just blots them on and they look good, but I have trouble with them sometimes. They just don't always look right. So it's definitely something that I practice and experiment with to find out how I like them to look. Because I also feel like with more rendered pieces that I normally do, they're a little bit easier for me to do highlights in the eyes. But with these, I've been having trouble finding a balance between rendered and simple and interesting. So it's just something I've been playing around with. And then on my original sketch of this that I had with the poor recording at the beginning, I had flowers in her hair. I think I cut that part out to transition into the new line art that I did for it for this video. But I had flowers in her hair because I just thought that was really like pretty and naturey, and it reminds me of the part in the movie where she has her hair braided with lots of flowers through it. And it just feels very Rapunzel-y, and it also feels really fairy-like to me to have flowers in her hair in her braid. So I put tons of flowers in her braid, and I just had them be just little simple flowers because I just wanted the effect of flowery hair. I started with the flowers by just coloring them all white and then going through, and I locked that layer so that I could color all of the flowers different colors. And I think I used like purple and yellow and pink. And then for a few of them, like the more simple flower shapes that only had two petals, I think I ended up turning them into leaves and painted them green. So I went back through and I added just a little bit of color mixing. I put a little bit more purple into the pink, and I put a little bit more of her hair color into her sleeves to kind of further the transparency look. And just kind of like blend the colors out a little bit, help them come together a little easier. I took some of the purple and some of the pink from her dress, and I kind of put it into her hair as kind of like not a reflection. What do they call it? The word escapes me, but just to blend those colors together a little bit better. And then I tried coloring the line art with some of the colors from the colored part of the piece and just kind of blended that out just to kind of make it look just a little softer, but I still wanted it to be dark black line art for the most part. So it's just kind of tinted a little bit with the colors that are around it. And then it was time for me to start the background. And I wasn't entirely sure exactly what I wanted to do with the background, but I knew that I wanted to do something that was a little bit different from the way that I normally do things and kind of have almost like a frame around her instead of a background. And I started this out by doing like her mirror. And I think I'm going to cut most of the mirror drawing out of the video just because I didn't end up going with it, but I still wanted you to see it and see that I had a different idea before what I ended up with. But it just was too busy to have a whole thing back there, and I just think that the idea was executed poorly by me. But this was kind of what that looked like, because she has that mirror in the movie in her tower, and I kind of wanted to incorporate as the frame in the background. I thought that would be kind of interesting. And maybe if it would have worked if I would have made it bigger and made her completely in the mirror part, but it just wasn't feeling right, so I ended up scrapping that completely and going with something else. But before I changed the mirror idea, I also did her wings because I wanted to see if maybe it would help her stand out against the mirror. It didn't. So here's me drawing the new background, and I've been really liking those like pointed arch shapes. They feel very elvish to me, and I really love them. So I wanted to have that shape in the background. And then I wanted to redo her wings because I was really liking the way that the dark background looked, and I just didn't think her wings looked very magical against the dark background. So I wanted to make really like sparkly, translucent, but still purple wings instead, and I made those. And then I put a little bit of foliage in the pointed arch background frame thing, because I thought it would be kind of fun if the frame was like an entryway to a very like foliage-y, that's not even a word, but a very like leafy looking space. I've been loving dangly like foliage that is hanging and pretty, and so I definitely wanted to add that into the frame and do some like dangling greenery. And I think it's so pretty. I know that wisteria is really dangly and pretty, and I could have done it, but I didn't want the purple in the background to conflict with the purple in the foreground with Rapunzel. So I kept it green, and because I'm sure that there is green dangly foliage out there somewhere. I just don't know what it's called. But I put it in there, and I liked the way that it turned out. I really liked the frame, and I'm thinking of doing more um princesses as fairies. I just think that it's such a fun thing to push creativity and see how you can mesh two different things. And anyway, I'm pleased with how it turned out. If I were to do another fairy princess, who would you want me to turn into a fairy? Which princess would you want me to turn into a fairy? Anyway, that's all for me today. Bye.